Paris, the epicenter of urban kiz. But when it comes to festival reviews, there's not many dancers spilling the tea. That's why I'm here to give you the real lowdown on Paris Kizomba Congress, more commonly known as PKC. What worked? What didn't work? Is it worth your time? Let's dive in. Hi, I'm Christina Mckiztosh of Mckiztosh Dance. Welcome back to my channel where we talk about all things Kizomba and urban kiz. And today we are talking about Paris Kizomba Congress PKC, and I'm giving you the real lowdown, my festival review, so you can kind of make that decision whether you want to try it out, or even tell me if you also agree with my review, if that was your experience, or what was your experience if you've been already. So PKC was in its 12th edition, so it was held from the 14th to the 18th of November 2024. It is held at the Hilton Hotel at Paris Charles de Gaulle Airport. And why did people go, or why did I go? So people go because obviously it's in its 12th edition, so it's been running for a really long time. It's a really popular event. It attracts lots of dancers. There's obviously the allure of dancing in Paris, and because Urban Kiz was created in Paris, you tend to get, or we tend to think that there are higher level dancers in Paris, so that you're going to get really good high skilled dances. You can also level up in the workshop. So PKC has a very extensive lineup of famous teachers and DJs. So the lineup also attracts a lot of dancers. There's a lot of things to see and do at PKC. So the main three things is the workshops, what I've explained. So a lot of famous teachers, popular teachers that you can learn from. There's the social dancing aspect. So there's a lot of time that you can use to social dance. So they'll have day socials starting at around like 2 p.m. and they go until like 8 p.m. And then there's a nighttime parties that's starting around like say 10 p.m. and they run up until the early hours of the morning, so like 6, 7 a.m. And then there's also a very famous and popular competition, the Olympiads, Olympiads of Kizomba, a competition that is held at PKC. I don't know how long they've been holding it there, but it's definitely been running at that event for a few years. So there is also that. And I actually partook in the competition, and it was one of the main reasons why I particularly wanted to go to PKC. So I'll be giving you a little bit of insight of how I found the competition a little bit later on in the video. So stay tuned for that. So first things first, we're going to talk about the cost of this event. So when you're weighing up a festival, you kind of tend to weigh up the cost and whether you think it's going to be worth it with all the other features that the festival has to offer. So this particular festival, I would say I bought the pass, and as I mentioned, I also competed. So you get a little bit of, you have to buy a full pass to compete, but you get a little bit of a discount on the pass because you also pay an entry to compete. So I bought, and also the pass prices also goes up the longer you leave it, the closer to the event. So it's best to kind of book your pass early if you're planning to go, especially if you are a follower, because sometimes they also pause passes that you can buy to keep the ratio balance good during the event. So I would definitely say book your pass as early as you can if you're deciding to go. But I spent about 115 euros on my pass. I would say that's about £90. And then my flights. So my flights I took from Birmingham, UK, and that goes straight into Charles de Gaulle Airport. So it's a direct flight. I did leave by my flight a little bit too late, so the price went a little bit up. So I would say I spent about £190 on a flight. And then the hotel, so it's all-in-one festival at the Hilton. I stayed in the main venue in the Hilton for 3 nights, and you get breakfast with that. I shared the room with a friend, but it still cost me about £200, I would say. That was my share for the 3 nights at the Hilton. So all in all, that's coming up to about £500. And then you only get breakfast, so I would still need to buy some food for lunch or dinner. And there was also a little bit of cost me getting to the airport in Birmingham, because I don't live near the airport, so I took some transport to get me to the airport in Birmingham. So say all that costs an additional £100, so you're looking at about £600 to go to this festival. As I said, that might vary a bit the earlier you book your pass and your flights. If you decide maybe not to stay in the main hotel, you might be able to save a little bit of money that way as well. If you decide to maybe, I think they do triple rooms as well. So if you maybe decide to stay with an extra friend, you might be able to reduce the cost a little bit more. But I would say typically you're looking at about £600 to do this festival. So is it worth the £600? Let's get into it. Location. So as I mentioned, it's an all-in-one. It's at the airport, the Hilton Airport, which I think that's like a 4-star hotel. It's a very fancy hotel. So it's a very nice hotel. It has like nice little perks. So like they give you like a jug of water, or you can use the water fountains to fill up your jug of water. There is a fridge in the room, so that's good if you maybe buy a little bit of food outside and you want to store it in the fridge for later. So that's a really good thing that they have inside the room, and it's just very aesthetically pleasing, the whole Hilton. It is, I found it's a pricey hotel, so I didn't eat in like my other meals, like my lunch and dinner. I didn't eat in the hotel, but because you're next to the airport, there was like a Marks and Spencer's shop that you can kind of buy quite a good few things. Like you can buy whatever your like bakery type items. There's like sandwiches and stuff you get in a supermarket. So you can definitely kind of eat from there. And I mainly ate from there. I didn't eat anywhere else really. So my breakfast at the main hotel, and then I would buy stuff from the Marks and Spencer's to eat kind of like at dinner time. I have been to this festival before, and the previous year, so I can kind of do a little bit of comparison to things I did a little bit differently. And that time I actually used Uber Eats to eat in the evening, but it's quite expensive. I think that's to do with Paris. So this year I decided I'm just going to eat from Marks and Spencer's. So yeah, but it's close, like at least it is close to like a few minutes walks to a local kind of supermarket, but it is in an airport, so it is more expensive than a normal supermarket. Just to be aware of that. One thing also to, there's quite a few little things to do with location and the hotel and things like that. But the main thing is it's advertised as a festival in Paris, which it is, but you are not close to the main city of Paris. You're about an hour away from Paris. So if you haven't done your research and you don't know that, you need to be aware of that. You're an hour away from the city of Paris. So don't be thinking that, oh, I can nip into the center of Paris and do some sightseeing as well as the festival. You would need to like book extra days before, after the festival, and book a different accommodation and stay in the center of Paris if you wanted to explore Paris, where like the Eiffel Tower is and what landmarks of actual Paris. You are actually at the airport. You're not in the city center, and that brings me to the pre-party. So I didn't go to the pre-party. I went from Friday to Monday, but they have a pre-party on the Thursday, and that is at Le Riga. I think that's how you pronounce it. I'm not French. I don't know how to speak French. And that is in the center of Paris. So if you're planning to go to that, you need to, I would say, especially if you're a solo traveler, a female solo traveler, you need to book accommodation close to the center of Paris if you want to go to the pre-party, because you won't be able to I don't know what time the transport system stops, but you're not going to feel comfortable to be traveling an hour back to the main venue. So definitely bear that in mind. A couple of other things to bear in mind with the hotel if you plan to book the main hotel is that the price quoted does not include city tax. So Paris seems to be notorious. I haven't come across anywhere else for this city tax business, and it's not like a few euros. It's a good like uh for the like the 3 night stay. I think my city tax was €50. So be aware of that because they take that at check-in. It's not quoted on what you book during like when you're booking your pass and the hotel package. It's not quoted. I couldn't see easily quoted anyway. They probably did put that in the small print, but it's not there for me to see clearly. So just to be aware of that. And a main thing that I wanted to tell you to be aware of is they have like, again, I think it's to do with Paris. They have like this security deposit that they want you to pay, even though you've already paid for your stay. They expect you to then also pay like a security deposit, and that security deposit is pretty much like, I think it ends up being €50 per night. So for me, that was €150 that they're taking in security deposit, and then you don't get that back refunded until you've checked out. And depending on your bag, how long that will take for you to get back. So you really need to be aware and have kind of money set aside that can be held on your account that you don't need to use imminently that weekend, because that happens. So either you, especially if you're sharing with a friend who might not also know about that, it comes of a big shock and you might not be prepared for it. So definitely that is a top tip if you're thinking of going to PKC and staying in the main hotel, is that you need €50 per night security deposit, and you also need your city tax. And I don't feel like the organization have done a good enough job to kind of tell you those things so that you're prepared for them, because it's not everyone that has that amount of money readily available to be held for, you know, a weekend. So definitely be aware of that. So as I said, PKC has a lot to offer, a lot of different things to offer. So there's like 3 things that I would say categorizes it, that we're going to talk about during this video. So it is the kind of workshops and classes. Then you've got your social dancing, and then you've got, as I mentioned, the Olympics of Kizomba competition. So there's kind of 3 distinct features of this festival that you might want to partake in or that might attract you. So we'll talk about that. The first one is the workshops. As I say, this is a festival that attracts a lot of people. It's been it's the 12th edition. So they have some really famous Kizomba teachers on the event. And those teachers also sometimes judge the competition. So they definitely want like established teachers, kind of famous teachers that people respect and know well and value their opinion and their expertise. So there was like, I'm not going to say the surnames because I'm awful at pronouncing people's surnames. So there's Lydia, there was Curtis Selden, that's kind of the only surname I can pronounce. Asia. So I particularly kind of not necessarily went for Asia, but I never learnt from her, and I do really admire her. So I was excited to go to her workshop. So there's lots of teachers on there that you can kind of look through. That brings me to another point that I want to mention. You can look through and see if you admire them or you like their style, or you can research them and see who you want to learn from. And I definitely would suggest you do kind of like a little bit of a research about that. What I wanted to mention is the fact that, especially if you're kind of newer to the scene, is although I'm trying to think of politically correct ways to say things. So this festival is called Paris Kizomba Congress. What my point is, and this is kind of to do with all festivals, especially in the Kizomba and urban Kiz scene, is just because something says Kizomba in the name or doesn't mean that Kizomba is A, going to be on the festival, or B, if it is on the festival, it might not be the main genre of dance. So it might be labeled as Paris Kizomba Congress, as this is. But I would say that this festival is more of an urban Kiz festival. The main room is urban Kiz, and it attracts more urban Kiz dancers than it does Kizomba dancers. So the one thing that you can do to kind of check or kind of uh, assess whether the festival is going to have the dance style that you particularly want to do, because some people do want to do more kizomba or are more kizomba dancers than they are urban kids and vice versa, is to definitely look at your lineup and how many of those artists are more urban kids or how many of those artists are more kizomba, and that will give you an indication whether this festival is for you and has a dance style that you want to kind of learn or progress in, and how much of that of the festival is dedicated to the dance style that you kind of want to learn. This particular festival does have more urban kids artists on there, so that's why I mentioned it. So, and I nowadays I am more on the urban kids side, or kind of want to dance socially more urban kids. So it's another reason why I pick this festival to attend. So, as I was mentioning, workshops, it is a very popular festival. The class sizes are big. So, I only managed to go to one class, and it was by Asia. And I kind of beelined for that because that is what I wanted to do. And I looked at the schedule that they put out. So, definitely, if you're going for workshops in mind, look at not just the lineup, but look at the schedule so you can kind of schedule your day. Because even the best kind of stamina person can't do kind of every workshop that's advertised, and there are a lot of workshops advertised, so you kind of do need to plan your day and be realistic about how much energy or how much information you can take in kind of one day or one go. So the size of the class was quite big, even though the room this class was held in like the upstairs kind of foyer bit. It was still a large space, and it had like I think flooring put down so that you can kind of do dancing and workshops. So it was good flooring, I would say, and you do have to position yourself well so that you can see the teacher, because like I said, it is a big class size, so you do need to be proactive in doing that. Although the teachers are very experienced, and Asia was very experienced in kind of structuring her class so that most people can see, you still need to kind of take initiative for yourself and don't hang at the back if you want to see. Do you know what I mean? So I would say, yeah, it is a well attended class. Asia workshop, I really enjoyed it. She was doing solo body control, I think it was, and that was really good. I enjoyed that. So definitely the classes, at least from the class that I went to, I would recommend going to some of the classes. Let's get on to social dancing. What did I make of the social dancing? There's a lot to unpack here. Social dancing, they have, as I mentioned, day socials, which are running like from about 2 p.m. kind of thing up until about 8 p.m. And then you've got your night parties that are running from like, say, 10 p.m. ish to like 6 a.m., 7 a.m. in the morning. So there's a lot of social dancing you can partake in to get yourself kind of better at social dancing and interact with people and new dancers. I found with the day social is all in one room. So I'll talk about rooms in a bit. But the day social is all in one room, and it's actually like half a room, even though half a room is still it's a massive room. So half a room is still a big size, but it's half a room because they kind of have half split. There's like a divider, and that divider is where they're keeping the competition, and the other side is where they're keeping the social dancing. And I found that I didn't do much social day dancing, but I found that during like the busy periods of the day social, that it did get quite hot in there. So I don't know if that's because they're only using kind of half the room. So if it is a busy period of social dancing, then it does get a bit crowded in there. But then once the competition kind of is over for that part of the day, they open it up, and then you get to use the whole full room for social dancing, and then it's better. As I mentioned, the flooring, really good flooring. There was no issues with the flooring. You're able to do like your slides if you're doing that. Really good flooring. terms of ventilation, as I mentioned, when you're using half the room, it's a bit harder, the ventilation wise. But at the night time, I didn't experience any problems with ventilation. In fact, like towards the back of the room, they have some doors that they can open, so to aid the ventilation. And I found that if I was stood too long, kind of not dancing towards that side of the room, I actually got cold. So ventilation is not a problem, and I think they do have like AC as well throughout the room. Again, I didn't have a problem with ventilation, so I wasn't looking like, oh, why is there no fans or anything like that. But I didn't pay that much attention as to if there was. There definitely wasn't fans, but I think there was like AC type equipment. And as I mentioned, the ventilation from the doors as well at the back. So that's day social. Night socials, 2 rooms, Kizomba room, and then there's a Kizomba room, and they also played like towards at the earlier part of the night, like some salsa bachata. So it was like a Latin room for a period of time, and then it changed into a Kizomba room. Authentic Kizomba is what I'm talking about there. So that is the smaller room, and it kind of like had the room, and then they used like a little bit of foyer to kind of extend the room, and they put additional flooring there, so that you can dance. So it's like a room and then like a little extension foyer bit. I didn't, because I don't quite like that. I didn't spend much time in the Kizomba room. As I say, I'm more kind of focusing on my urban kids at the moment. But I didn't like that structure of having a room and then an extra bit. I can appreciate they're trying to make the room bigger, um, but it kind of then feels like if you're in the actual room, then you're not mingling with the people on in this part, and if you're in this kind of foyer part, you're not really mingling with the people in the inside the room, and then that kind of makes it hard as to navigate where to best stand to get a dance, because you're like, should I stand in the room itself or should I stand in the foyer bit? And if you're standing in the foyer bit, do people think you're taking like a break and having a drink, or you're actually wanting a dance? So I didn't love the structure for that, but they do have a Kizomba room, and it is a smaller room. As I mentioned, definitely check out the lineup to kind of help you assess whether the Kizomba or the Urban Kids is going to be the bigger main focus of the event. Get into the Urban Kids room, really big room. DJs, again, I was saying, really famous DJs. I think they had DJ Shark, DJ Keen, DJ Snakes. I particularly really like DJ Snakes, so that's another kind of thing that might sway me to book the event, whether you like the DJs on there or you rate the DJs on there. So, but they definitely have really famous DJs. So, and the music was really good. In terms of music, the Urban Kids music, they did have quite a good mix of kind of like more high energy Urban Kids, like dynamic Urban Kids, or and then kind of more a kind of ghetto zouk or Afro beats type vibe that you can dance to, as well. So there was a good mix of that. I would say for me, I don't like kind of really slow music or douceur, or like music that really is encouraging like more just tarashinya on the spot type dancing. And for me, they started playing that a little bit too early in the night, because like I said, the main night is like up until 7 a.m. and I would say about 3:30, 4 a.m. it starts turning to slower music, and for me that's a little bit earlier. Like, I don't understand why you can't just do that more like 5 a.m. You know what I mean? Like, so for me, because when I start hearing that kind of slow music, people do rotate less. That will bring me onto the balance as well. So people tend to rotate partners a bit less because of the slower music. So you're less likely to, if you're not already dancing or made that connection with a particular dancer, then you're less likely to now get dances. So for me, they started playing it a little bit too early. But some people do really like that kind of music, so they might appreciate it. So it just depends, I guess, on you and your taste. Talking about the balance, as I mentioned, I have been to this festival the previous year, and the balance was a lot better this year. So they've definitely improved that. The previous year, I felt like there was a lot of followers or women waiting around for dances. There was a lot more followers than leaders. This year it felt pretty much balanced, I would say, to be honest. Pretty much balanced. Yeah, you still might be waiting for dances or whatever, but there definitely wasn't times like there is a DJ booth where like more the famous dancers are going to be dancing towards there, and that will attract a queue. But other than of followers, but other than that, I wouldn't say like there was an imbalance particularly, and I think that's because this year I noticed that they kind of at least stop selling female passes at a certain point. So maybe they noticed that there was the balance was going off a bit, and they had paused the follower passes during some parts of the year running up to the event. So I think that really helped, and it did impact the festival, I think, positively, them doing that. So that was good, I would say. In terms of, we talk about Paris and high level dancers, um, I not that they were bad dancers, they weren't bad dancers. I feel with this vibe, this festival, there is a bit of a like, not ego, but where like high level dancers dance with other high level dancers, or known dancers kind of dance with other known dancers. Less kind of more interaction between um kind of everybody. But this is just my opinion and how I felt. As I mentioned, I went last year, and I felt this was more pronounced last year compared to this year, but it was still kind of there as a vibe for me this year. And I have danced in other, I've danced in Paris at other festival, Battle Kids, and I felt like that was more friendlier, and there was definitely more kind of interaction with people that you might not know, and they're happy to dance with people that they don't know. Um, Whereas I feel like with this festival, you kind of either need to be um, known, not necessarily known as a famous dancer, but known within the community. So maybe they've seen you in Paris before, and you've made some connections with friends. So I guess the more festivals you kind of go to, as time goes on, the more dances you kind of get, because you've kind of networked and made friends with people, and then they will invite you to dance, or you can invite them to dance. You feel comfortable to do that. Um, but if you kind of haven't danced in Paris a lot before, so you're not known within that community, and you're not a famous dancer in itself, then I feel like you might not get as many dances as you would initially expect. Um, so yeah, so that's something to bear in mind. But again, that is just my opinion on how I experienced it. They did have taxi dancers team, which is, again, that would probably help the balance. And the taxi dancers kind of stay further away from like the DJ booth, which is good. So that you're able, those people that are maybe struggling to get a dance, or don't want to potentially fight for dances and put themselves out there, you're still able to get dances with the taxi dancers. I think I danced with a couple of taxi dancers, and they were really nice dances, enjoyable. And I'll also just mention about dress codes in this social dancing bit. I found the dress codes, they were easy to do, so you didn't necessarily have to like buy something additional. For the pre-party, even though I didn't go to pre-party, I think it was just like orange, so that's pretty simple. You don't have to like potentially go out and buy something. If you've got some orange somewhere, then you could have just wore that if you wanted to. And bearing in mind, not everyone does the dress codes, and you don't have to do the dress codes. It's not like they're going to refuse you entry if you don't do the dress codes or you can't find anything. But sometimes it's nice to partake in the dress code. It makes it, the night a little bit more special. So that was a pre-party. I think the other dress codes were bohemian. So I just had like a cord 2-piece set that kind of had like a summery kind of carefree vibe, which was simple to do. and kind of like bohemian like jewelry that I had already from like holidays, so I didn't have to buy anything additional. I think the main night was elegant, so that's really simple, and that's often uh, a, a a theme that festivals use. So if you've got like a nice dress, you can just wear that, and it's elegant, simple. Men just obviously smart casual. If you want to wear a suit, wear a suit. I think the hardest one was the last night, which was technology. But I managed to find like a bodysuit that had like a green, shimmery green material that was like, oh, that's a bit technological. So I wore that with just like a black skirt, and that was pretty much. Again, I didn't buy anything additional for that. I had that in my wardrobe. So the dress codes were pretty simple to do, I would say. For the most part, people did do the dress code. Yeah, for the most part, people did do it. I think the technology one was the probably, and because it was the last Sunday night, that was probably the one that wasn't maybe upheld the most. And because it's very open to interpretation as well. So that one's probably the most. But definitely people did elegant, and bohemian, because it's a bit carefree, the bohemian, and again open to interpretation. So I think people kind of did it, and but if they didn't do it, you didn't really notice. So the dress codes I found were easy to do, and like I said, open to interpretation, so they weren't too much of a hassle. Moving on to the competition part of the festival. So the festival hosts Olympiads of Kizomba competition, which I would say is definitely the kind of biggest competition in Europe for Kizomba and Urban Kiz. And Tarasho, because they also have Tarasho on it. And solo styling, because they do have solo styling on that as well. So it's definitely the biggest competition in Europe. I would probably go as far as globally as well. It's definitely a competition that is held in high regard by dancers. If you look at a lot of Instagram profiles for kind of like famous dancers, they normally put, if they've competed, um, like what medal they got. So definitely it's held in high regard, um, and it does take up a large chunk of the festival. Like I think it runs pretty much for the 3 days, like, because I think Fridays is kind of like pre-selections, and then Saturday is kind of like the maybe like semi-finals, and then Sunday is like the final. So, and it's running like say from like 2 p.m. up until like 6 p.m. kind of each of those days. So it does take up a lot of time. Um, as I mentioned, this festival has a lot to see and do. So you really need to kind of go in there with the mind of, um, if I'm doing a competition or I want to watch the competition, then I'm kind of doing that um, as my focus. Or if I'm doing workshops, that's my focus, and plan that. Or if you do want to do day socials, you've kind of planned that. So definitely look at the planning for the day. If you're competing, or if you're potentially watching the competition or supporting maybe your friends that have entered the competition, then that's pretty much all you can do in the daytime. There isn't much time. Like I said, I managed to go to one class with Asia, and that was me beelining and being very focused. I want to go to that class, and luckily that class didn't kind of wasn't on. Luckily, at the same time as I was competing myself, or UK dancers that actually competed that I wanted to support. So luckily that class wasn't on at the same time as they were kind of competing. So I was able to go. But otherwise you're gonna struggle to kind of do all three. It's a festival, you have to plan your day and have in mind what you want to do. Otherwise the day will just the day will just run, and what happens if you don't have that focus. As I mentioned, there were some UK dancers that competed. So we had two Kizomba couples. We had Miles and Ophelia, and we had Jonathan and Lydia. And Jonathan and Lydia actually managed to come medal third in the authentic Kizomba category, which was amazing. And then we had Urban Kiss couple Luke and Minnie from the UK that competed as well. And then on myself, I did the solo styling. And that was an experience. Like I said, it's a very nerve-wracking experience because this is like the biggest competition there is globally. But it's definitely a competition that you can kind of learn things from, even if you don't win. You learn kind of what it takes, the amount of practice and effort you have to put into doing or preparing for a competition. You kind of learn to deal with rejection. Also being kind of like a good sportsman, like also like supporting others that are competing in the category, because otherwise that you want support, and so in order to get support you need to give support. So being a good sportsman, you kind of learn all that kind of thing. When I went up to do my solo styling, this was the pre-selection round, so the judges will watch. I think there's about 4 or 5 of you that go up at a time. This was just for solo styling I'm talking about here. And the judges have either yes, and you need, basically there's 5 judges in the solo category, so you need 5 yeses to go through to the next round. So it's either a yes that they'll put on their board after they've watched you dance, or there's a come back harder next year, come back better next year. I got 4 yeses, which is really good. So it helped me kind of like think, okay, I'm on the right track, but I did get 1 come back harder next year. So I have to work on those bits if I decide to go back next year. They do record go live with the competition. So if you don't go to the festival, you can still watch it at home. But I would say there is definitely a big difference to watching it kind of online and being there in that atmosphere and that energy. There really is like an energy and a vibe with the competition. So it is really good fun to watch, and also kind of get inspiration from other dancers as well, whether you're just watching or actually competing. So definitely I'll put a link to my kind of competition piece that I did in the description box if you kind of want to check that out.
Basta olhar sem pestanejar e sem duvidar. Só para começar, deixa-me entregar sem medo. Escuta, amor, meu paraíso é ao teu lado. O meu conforto é nos teus lábios. Tenta fingir tá complicado. Te quero toda hora. Às vezes fico chata, mas bem lá no fundo gostas disso. E sem a tua chata, saudade dói na alma. Nós fazemos falta. Gosto do teu beijo, teu toque, como tu me cuidas. Olha o segredo. Que amor é esse que não passa? Que gosto é esse que não acaba? Mas que amor é esse que não passa? Que nem com o tempo ele se apaga. Nasceste pra me cuidar. Nasceste pra me cuidar. Nasceste pra me...
In conclusion, so this is kind of like the juicy bit, maybe, is would I recommend this festival to somebody else? Or would I go again? Like I said, I've been now twice. From the year before, I wouldn't necessarily go again unless I had a specific reason. And I did have a specific reason why I went again. I wanted to compete in the competition. So, but last year I found like the imbalance, and like I was saying about kind of like the snobbery, a little bit of kind of people dancing more with who they know, especially if they're a higher level, who they know, or other high level dancers that they kind of maybe seen online. and that was still there this year. So for me, again, it would be the same thing. I wouldn't go again unless I was pretty much competing, because the other thing apart for me, the competition is the main thing on the event. So I'd only really go again if I was competing, or if I wanted to support someone or a friend of mine that was competing, or if I wanted to just watch the competition for myself, which is one of the main reasons why I booked the previous year. If I just wanted to watch the competition for myself and kind of get inspiration from that. Because there are a lot of festivals that also equally have a good lineup of famous teachers. And I do prefer smaller events. I just find them a bit more intimate. You can make more connections with other dancers. This festival is rather large, so if you're not someone who really loves a larger kind of festival, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it for you. The main reason why the previous year I wouldn't recommend it again, it was the imbalance, which was corrected this year, and I'm assuming that they would keep that part of maybe pausing the passes when there's too many followers booked. But yeah, I just there's other festivals to try. I don't love the vibe of the social dancing, so for me, I wouldn't go, and I wouldn't necessarily recommend it to somebody. But it's definitely a very big festival. It's very reputable, so it's worth trying out. Um, I didn't mention this, but I've actually been to Paris not to do festivals, because that's a different experience, just to go to kind of like their local nights. And doing their local nights, I found probably more enjoyable than the festival experience. People are more relaxed. You dance with a lot of more people. I've been to La Riga. I went to the LPK Mondays. I really enjoyed the LPK Mondays when I went that time. Um, I've also been to kind of Rebirth, although it was within a competition, but the social that they had after the competition was really good. I enjoyed that. I've been to Panama, that they had an event, and that was really, really good. And it also attracts kind of famous artists that aren't necessarily booked, but they live in Paris. So that was a really nice event. And I haven't done much. There's something called BNF that they kind of do outside, and I think it's more in the summer months. I've been to it once, and it was prior to going to Larigue, so I didn't really get to spend much time, but a lot of people enjoy that. So I think you can definitely make a trip to Paris, and you can kind of do the landmarky things in the day, and then you can do in the evening just go and dance in their local events, and that's a really good experience to do if you haven't done so already. There is a Facebook group that has like, they call it like planning of like all the events of that take place in Paris that you can go to. So I'll try and link that in the description box, because if you do plan to make the trip, it's a good place to see what's on. So yeah. But in terms of PKC, what would I rate it out of 10? I think it really depends on what you're going for. So like those three categories that I was mentioning, workshops, social dancing, and the competition, it's going to affect what you do and how you rate the festival, what you want to do. Again, it also, you need to take into consideration, are you more a Kizomba dancer, and you're going for Kizomba, or are you going for Urban Kiz? If you're going for Kizomba, I wouldn't recommend it necessarily, because there are a lot of bigger festivals that have Kizomba as their main attraction. Urban Kiz is the main attraction in this festival. That's what I would say. So that, all of those things, and like I said, it is a pricey festival, especially if you're staying in the main hotel. So all of those things you kind of need to take in consideration. I rated, I'm giving it a 6 out of 10, guys. 6 out of 10. Please do like, subscribe, if you haven't already, this video. It really helps me out in the algorithm when you do things like that. And you subscribe and hit the notification bell so you can check out more of my videos, tips. Let me know in the comments if you've been to PKC, your experience. How did you find it? What do you rate it out of 10? Yeah, I'd like to know what you think, and I'll see you in the next video.